Hey, what's up, guys? It's Rico here, CEO of SourceFind Asia, host of the Made in China podcast, and the host of the SourceFind Asia YouTube channel, of course. Back with another one, and then back in the refined, kind of officially moved to the Philippines. And I'm sitting across from this fine gentleman over here.
Hey, I'm David Abusiewiez. I'm the COO of Alpha Capital.
All right, awesome. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the progress that Alpha has made in the last year, because I interviewed Mark Roca a year ago, actually, right here, and sort of what brought David to the Philippines. So let's start from the beginning, man. Like, where were you born? What led you to coming to the Philippines?
So originally I was born in Miami Beach, Florida. I basically grew up there, never really traveled that many places, road trips here and there, but never too far from home. When I was in college, I took the opportunity to study abroad in Milan, Italy. That was my first experience outside the US. Pretty positive one. I got to see 18 countries in Europe on that trip, something like that. So that was pretty awesome. I enjoyed Europe, but it wasn't quite what I was looking for. It wasn't different enough from home. It still felt very, Western.
Yeah,
should be the word for it.
You're looking for more adventure.
Yeah, I was looking for something, big cultural differences that I wasn't expecting as much.
Yeah.
And so I took a job with IBM doing artificial intelligence consulting and implementation at Fortune 500 companies. So I lived in Manhattan, worked for them for a little over a year. And then one of my friends who worked at Amazon, he quit his job. He moved out to the Philippines to help another guy that we went to college with to run this photography studio catered towards Amazon sellers. At the time, I didn't have that much exposure to Amazon besides as a customer. I knew people were selling on Amazon and whatever, but didn't think anything of it really. While I was studying abroad, actually, I had met my first batch of Amazon sellers, a bunch of guys. We randomly met up in Portugal, in Lisbon, and had a really good time with them. They told me about what they did, and I found it pretty cool, but I didn't think much of it. So my friend quit his job, came to the Philippines. He was my best friend, so I hadn't seen him for maybe a few months, 3 or 4 months. And it was my birthday, so I took a little vacation leave, came out here. They offered me a job to come out here and be their director of technology. I said yes. So I went back, and my first day back at IBM, I told my manager, hey, I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice. And she just looked at me with the craziest expression, like I was a madman. It's like, what happened in the Philippines? You were there for, not even 2 weeks, and now you just come back and quit. Like, yeah, I'm going to move out there and help scale the startup. So, yeah, I took that opportunity, came out to the Philippines, moved here to BGC. Really cool place. It's nice.
So when you first came on that trip, that was just pure vacation, right? You weren't thinking, I'm going to move here.
I mean, I had some sort of idea that the guys were going to be like, yeah, quit your job, come out here. But I didn't know what I was getting into. I'd never been to Asia. I remember I took a little stop in Hong Kong for 3 days as kind of a layover before coming here, and that was just crazy. I really liked it, but it was also, I don't think I would have moved there. It was so far out of my comfort zone that I think it was a nice little vacation type of thing, but I couldn't have moved to Hong Kong right then and there.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Philippines, beautiful country, the people are very friendly and speak a lot of English. So when I came here, I was amazed at how easy it was to live here and just be here. And I thought, this could be home. Like it's really cool. And I met a couple entrepreneurs while I was out here that made me think, okay, you know, there's a lot of opportunity out here. It's not just with these guys, the guys that I knew that moved here, but there's a ton of entrepreneurs doing their thing in Asia, and it's something I want to be a part of.
Yeah, that was one of my pleasant surprises when I was here last year for a month. Was I was coming here for a month to see what it would be like to live here, but I was thinking of it more from the lifestyle side of things. But I had this in the back of my mind. I was like, whatever place I move to has to have some business opportunities. Otherwise, I'm just going to be like unproductive. Yep. And then when I met you and Mark, and then you guys brought me here, and then you introduced me to a bunch of people, I was like, okay, yeah, that was like the last component to the puzzle for me. And I was like, all right, fuck it, I'm definitely moving out here. Yep.
Yeah, it's really awesome. I meet a new entrepreneur at least once a week, someone that I didn't know. And like, there's a bunch of people in the online business community that are out here already. I actually ran into Joe Magnotti today, the CEO of Empire Flippers. We were just having lunch and saw him. Hey Joe, how's it going? Came over, chatted for a little bit. We're actually, I haven't gotten to that part, but we're actually a customer of his now, not with the photo studio, so that's quite nice. We have a good rapport with him. But yeah, we're sitting here in the Refined, like, Noel, Canadian entrepreneur, came out here, like, started something awesome. There's all sorts of opportunity here.
Talk to me about why did you want to leave the States? Was it just because you were looking for something bigger, or you were just bored, or is it just that the general, early 20s, like, looking for adventure?
So I've always been like pretty crazy about technology. I like it a lot, but I'm not like a programmer. I can program. I don't like sitting in front of a computer just programming all day long. That's not me. I really like the business development side of technology. So that job at IBM seemed pretty ideal for me. I was a consultant working with tech. I was so psyched when I got it. But then in actuality, I got there and it was basically just another corporate job. So I think that was number one, is I really hated the corporate environment. It was like, come up with a good idea, wait 2 months to 3 months before you hear anything from your supervisors about whether you're allowed to do it. Yeah. I'm one of those guys that's like, okay, good idea, how do we implement? Let's do it, let's sit around. So, I had a lot of wasted time there, where I was just waiting for things to happen because of corporate. So I wanted to get out of corporate. I saw the startup environment. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But also part of my job was, and I think this was the kicker, the project that I was working on, I was sitting in a windowless conference room all day.
Oh my God.
So we got there at 7:30 to 8 a.m. every day, and sat in this windowless conference room. The only way you knew time was going by was because it was ticking by on your laptop.
Yeah. And
you had to stay there until basically the boss left at 7 or 8 p.m. So you're sitting in a windowless conference room for 12 hours. So I came out here, little vacation, met up with the guys. We'd work for 3-4 hours, go to the gym, have lunch, go back to work for another 3-4 hours, go out, have dinner. And then the second half of the trip, we took this little trip down to Batangas province, which is close to Manila and has some pretty nice beaches. So we stayed at a little resort there, worked from our laptops. And that was a life that, I would never pass up. I didn't, I saw this opportunity to get out of the corporate environment, cubicles, conference rooms, and just get into, this is whatever you want. You want to work from a beach, you can. You want to work from an office here, you can. You can do whatever, wherever. We're working from a gentleman's lounge right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Not
basically a men's spa, essentially. It's funny because when I talk to people online, people that watch the YouTube videos and stuff like that, they're just like, man, so what is Manila? People just don't really know what it's like here.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of doing these kind of videos is kind of I have a mixed feeling about it, because it's I don't want to tell people, but at the same time I can't help myself.
It's kind of we have this joke, when something good, you say wherever it is sucks, don't come.
Yeah.
So it's Manila sucks, don't come.
It's horrible.
But if you really want to come, you're the kind of person that we want here, so you should come.
Yeah.
But if you think it's horrible here, don't come. We don't want you.
It brings up an interesting question. Who do you think? What's the profile of sort of the Western entrepreneurs? that are here. I guess you can compare it to like Chiang Mai or some of these other places where there's digital nomads.
Yeah, so that's
Right.
that's definitely, I would say, the biggest difference, right? Like,
Yep.
I could not categorize myself as a digital nomad. I thought that's what I was. I'm not the kind of guy that has one backpack and can just move around from place to place and work with the bare minimum. I like a little bit of that posh feeling. I like feeling at home.
Yeah.
So I like to travel, but I like to have a home base. So Chiang Mai, from what I've seen, I've been there a couple times. It's a lot of digital nomads, people finding their way. Even of the guys that base there, it's mostly guys that run purely their own company that generally keep it a little smaller, not too many people, definitely VAs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But here it's definitely different. You've got a lot of talent at your disposal, so hiring Filipinos, there's a lot of good talent here, all very good for English speaking, so generally bigger businesses here. We have about 40 people working for us right now. I know Empire Flippers is around 55, including their remote staff, something like that. So I would say the people that base in Manila generally consider it their home base
Yeah.
and aren't quite as transient as in other places.
You think that the age range is a little bit older?
I'd say it's pretty skewed. So like most of our friends are either late 30s, early 40s, or mid 20s. Actually, I take that back. I mean, most of my company is in their early 30s, so
Yeah.
it's kind of all over the place. Like there's not such a big there's a huge diversification.
I think with, like you said, Manila for a lot of people is a long-term sort of base.
Yeah.
I think it could also be a starting place for some people. Like, I mean, it was for you, obviously, but even some of the guys who go to Chiang Mai, the reason why they go there is because it's inexpensive and,
Yes.
they have all these Western amenities and all that stuff. But I mean, you have the same things here. It's just maybe slightly
At a
more
higher
expensive.
price, yeah.
But even then, it's not really that much more expensive. Like you could definitely live.
In terms of earning
Yeah.
US dollars, so of course I follow like the digital nomad subreddit and know a bunch of guys in Chiang Mai. I think you can start in Chiang Mai at like $1,000, $1,200 a month kind of budget,
Yep.
and you'll be okay there. Manila, like that would be quite tight in BGC at least, and even in Makati you'd have to live maybe in like Mandaluyong, one of the other areas. Not to say that's bad or anything like that, but definitely the main areas with all the foreigners are quite pricey here.
Yeah.
So I would say it's mostly people who have developed their business a little bit more.
I think you could definitely start by, I was going to say, like, I think Chiang Mai is like the perfect starting place, and then you can sort of jump to a place like Manila or Bangkok or something like that.
I would say once you earn about 2,000 US a month,
Yep.
that's very, very comfortable living in Manila. Like at that price, I was living in a house with two other guys because we wanted to, and we shared a maid, and we were living in like a penthouse. It was pretty nice at 2K US a month. Now I'm making a little bit more than that, and life is even more posh. Have this place, have a dog, have a maid just for the dog, basically. So
You have a babysitter for your dog.
yeah, more or less. She takes care of him when I travel. She takes care of him while I'm at the office, so he's not alone. You know.
Sure. No, I agree. I think it's interesting because, like, having spent quite a bit of time in Chiang Mai and a lot of my friends, the profile is different here. I feel like it's a higher end entrepreneur, and like you said, I feel like usually their businesses are a little bit more developed, or at least they're taking it more seriously in that sense. Like you can definitely still have the, 2-man operation with VAs here and stuff like that. But what I liked is because I'm coming from sort of corporate China, like where I had an office with employees and all that stuff, and a lot of my business friends in Hong Kong are in similar situations. I think I still kind of see myself as a digital nomad, but I don't really identify too much with that lifestyle because I want to build something. I want to build a structure, with people and,
It's great to have that support network.
Yeah.
Like, as I said, home base.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about the place, it's about the people there.
It's about the
right?
people for sure.
And that's actually what really drew me in here. So the job that I came out here for, I quit after about 3 months.
I was about to ask you about that.
Due to differences in vision, let's say. But yeah, when I was deciding to quit,
and then how long, like a year later, you bought the company?
yeah, we can go into that one a little bit later. But you know, it's what really kept me here when I was thinking about quitting. I'm like, oh, does this mean I need to go back to the U.S.? What do I do? You know, I need to do something else. And thankfully, I ended up partnering with Mark Roca, who I think's been on your podcast before once or twice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I figured out what I was going to do. But when I was living here, I'm like, okay, listen, I should stay here no matter what, because there's a ton of opportunity here. There's guys running their companies that would hire me. I would have applied for jobs at Empire Flippers or something like that. There's definitely a lot of options here. So
which means leads me to the next question is like, how did you meet Mark, and then how did you join the Alpha Rock?
So on that original trip out here, when I was just kind of scouting, you know, taking a little birthday vacation, the guys that I was with invited one of their friends who was a client of the company. This was a photography studio, so completely different from anything I had done before. But
Jordan.
They invited buddy Jordan just walked in. They invited one of their clients who he does Amazon now, but he used to be a professional poker player.
Yeah.
And so he and Mark knew each other through poker. And so Mark came along on the trip with his girlfriend at the time. And, you know, we went down to Batangas, had a good time. I don't know what Mark struck me as. He's a very eccentric guy. When I first met him, I'm like, this guy from a country that most people have never heard of, Andorra, and like completely eccentric, completely different from anything I'd ever experienced before. You know, he struck me as interesting the first time I came out here, but we didn't really talk after that. I came back, started working, met up with him again after maybe a month of being here, and then, you know, we just kind of hit it off. We were chatting, you know, maybe at least once or twice a week, hanging out, and when I told him that I wasn't happy at that job, he's like, come, we'll figure out something for you to do. I have these businesses, maybe we can run them, like, we'll do something.
Yep.
And that something turned into Alpha Rock Capital, along with his partner at the time, Velas, and we've picked up quite a few more as well along the way. But yeah, so it was completely random chance. And then I took a leap on this guy who had no real plan at the time. Mark always has these plans up in his head, but no one can really tell what's going on. But took that leap, and then we formed this company that is now worth, well, we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do you think you can explain what Alpha Rock does better than Mark did?
Yeah, so
because I had some comments on the channel being like, sounds like a scam.
to put it as simply as possible, originally we were just acquiring Amazon FBA businesses. At one point we explored other avenues about any business related to Amazon, including, as Rico mentioned, the photo studio that I worked for in the past. Now we're refocusing directly on Amazon because selling Amazon FBA is like the most profitable thing when you can, like, dollar for dollar versus anything else. Amazon affiliates is awesome. We've experimented with that a little bit, but dollar for dollar does not make as much. Service business is a bear to manage, especially with all the people. It's fun, but when you look at investment versus in versus out, FBA is the way. So we basically buy small sellers FBA businesses and roll them up into bigger business that can ship more goods, get better shipping rates, you know, pay for inventory so that we're always in stock. With the coronavirus, you know, people are complaining that everyone's out of stock.
Yeah.
I chose to buy 4 months of stock before Chinese New Year just in case the factories took too long to start up again. We're sitting pretty right now. And yeah, so thankfully when you roll up a bunch of small businesses like that, you get a lot more buying power, a lot more negotiating power. And so that's what we do, is we just take small people's Amazon businesses, put them together, and make more money.
And then the long-term vision is to just build out the portfolio, and you have investors, and then
so we have investors that come in. We're going to continue to expand the portfolio. The more businesses we get, the cheaper everything gets as a whole. As I said, originally we were exploring other avenues. Those have kind of bridged off into their own ventures. So Alpha Rock just does FBA, and that's all that we'll do until it's no longer the most profitable investment. That's basically our thesis is we're doing FBA now because it's the most profitable thing we know of until it's not. And if that changes, we'll sell it off the portfolio and go do something else. But for right now, it's incredibly profitable.
I think I asked Mark the same question at the time. It's like one of those things where when you explain, especially for somebody like me that's been dealing with Amazon for 4 or 5 years, I'm like, why hasn't anybody else done this? And I think you guys only have like one major competitor, right? Like,
yeah, so it's actually the space, we're already starting to see people jumping in.
Yeah.
When we first started this, we had one major, what we'd consider a competitor with the exact same business model. Their name's Thrasio. You can look them up. I think they've raised somewhere in the 8 or 9 figure range now. So they've raised quite a bit of money. But they're essentially a traditional private equity fund based in the US, out of Texas, I believe. They hire American, well-educated graduates who come at very expensive cost. Thus, they can really only buy businesses that are in the 7-figure range. You don't really see them reaching down below the $1 million mark in terms of business value very much to buy. But that's our sweet spot. Like, we look mostly in the $100,000 to $500,000 list price range for businesses because those businesses are still more or less run by individuals who we believe haven't fully optimized their business. And so it provides a lot of opportunity for improvement, whereas someone that has $1 million business or more generally has tried to optimize the business to the best of their ability. So for us, we have this little sweet spot that we're in that we don't have any competitors in. There are 1 or 2 new competitors that are jumping into that multi-million-dollar space where the private equity funds operate. But so far, thankfully, because we're in a country with a lower cost of labor, we can pay our account managers really, really well here. They got a huge bump from their last job whenever they come on board. And so they're really happy. We pay them well, and the businesses operate well for cheap for us.
Operating expenses are significantly lower than
exactly
in other places.
Like 1/10, maybe.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So you think basically the companies that are 100 to 500 grand in value typically have more potential for growth with the investment than a company that's in the 7-figure plus range?
Yeah, when you look at FBA sellers, most of these companies start companies, right? They're small enterprises. Maybe they reach the medium enterprise level, but they started because someone found a product that they wanted to sell on Amazon, and they sourced the product and spent, usually on the higher end, $50,000 of initial investment on inventory. But most of them then had to wait for that inventory to sell before reordering. It leads to out of stocks. It leads to inefficient levels of ordering. They can't order enough for bulk discounts, things of that nature. So yeah, we feel that there's a lot of things that can be optimized. For us, one of the biggest ones has been shipping rates. The difference between shipping half a container and a full container, you save a ton of money by shipping a full container and purchasing all of that in bulk. So it's a pretty common roll-up strategy. It's acquisition, and it's been done before in every other industry. And this one is just new enough, and now we believe finally legitimate enough
and mature
that's
enough
the case.
as well.
Yeah. So
because you have when I sat on with Mark that time we were talking about is even my client profiles changed. 3-4 years ago, I was dealing with a lot of people that were just starting their Amazon businesses and were maybe had 20 grand to spend on an order, and then we also had to that's why we came up with all these smaller services that we could help those guys and still be profitable. Now I notice that I'm getting a lot more clients that have been running their businesses for 4 years, and they want to build themselves out of it. They don't want to deal with the supply chain management anymore. So it is at that stage where you have these entrepreneurs that kind of want to maybe have taken it as far as they can or they want to, and they're ripe to sell.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So a lot of people ask us why can you guys find these businesses that are profitable that people are selling? That makes no sense. And usually, especially at the range that we're acquiring at, as I mentioned, they're individuals, and maybe that person, they don't want to run their business anymore. They don't want to have to worry about their income stream constantly. We've bought a couple businesses from moms who just, they were stay-at-home moms and they wanted to take care of their kid, and they found a product to sell and they were selling it, but now they want to spend more time with their child. They don't want to have a 40-hour-a-week job managing their inventory and all of these things. So we've bought the business from them, and they're ecstatic because it basically provides the college fund for their kid, which is awesome, and they get to spend more time with their child. So, things like that, that's why someone's willing to sell a profitable business to us. And when it's just one person operating that business, one person can't do everything.
Yeah,
especially when
Amazon is
it's
such a unique marketplace because it's like anybody, especially 4 years ago, 5 years ago, anybody, if they found a decent product,
Yep.
could start it up for $5,000 and then build it into a $40,000 a month company, right? And then these are not necessarily entrepreneurs. They're just like you said, maybe a stay-at-home mom who's trying to make some extra money on the side, and it becomes something else, and then she's like, I kind of don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. So it's nice because it provides us the ability to do what we do, but also to give people the money that they want and get out of that daily grind and do whatever else they're passionate about. So many people tell us that they started it by accident. It's pretty amazing.
I was going to ask, so that competitor that's like based out of the States, the private equity fund, do you think, besides the fact that you're physically in the Philippines and all the expensive stuff, your proximity to China, does that make a difference?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're always going to have a problem on one side or the other. When you're operating in the US, maybe you're operating on the same time zone as investors and Amazon US support and things of that nature. But when you're operating on the same time zone as China, for example, my employees all day are messaging suppliers, hey, can we do this? Like, what about doing this? Can we change our packaging to make it this way and save us costs? Things of that nature. So we get to work pretty closely with the manufacturers. We're also close enough to fly there and take a sourcing trip if we need to at any given point. And mainly working on the same time zone I find incredibly beneficial. It's only maybe once every 2 or 3 months that I have to stay up until 11 or 12, so right before I go to sleep, I make a call to Amazon US support, get some big problem that we've been having that we couldn't deal with the Amazon Philippines or India support. So yeah, I mean, I find it way more beneficial to be here than in the US.
Yeah. When I spoke to Mark a year ago, how many employees did you guys have?
If you talked to him a year ago, I think that there were 3 of us that were considered managers and then like 2 employees or 3 employees at that time.
And then now you guys are close to what?
40. Yeah. A lot of that's the photography studio. We have a pretty big team there. We think we're going to spin it off into its own thing because that's what makes sense from a portfolio angle. A service business operates very functionally different than FBA businesses. But yeah, we have a lot of employees there, but we've also grown the FBA team. Now I think we're 10 on that side. And we're moving to a new office that should allow our biggest, constraint has been the office. So we got an office in a co-working space that had 4 seats originally for those of us that came every day. Then we were in a 7-seat office, and most days we have 10 to 12 people in a 7-seat office, but there's no other co-working spaces in the building. So we started building out our own full office that'll fit 30 people, have a full-size boardroom, 1 or 2 extra meeting rooms, a management office. So that'll really enable us to grow. We have 5 open positions right now on the FBA team that we're looking to fill. And that should all be going through in early April. March, we have a bunch of conferences we're going to.
Who else came on to the management team?
So originally it was Mark, who bought the first business, Vedast, who was his financial partner at the time but did nothing with Amazon, and then me operating them with the employees. Vedast now does a lot of our financial forecasting and legal related things. Vedast is also a former poker player and has a mathematical and logical mind like I've never seen before. So really happy to have him on board and working on this. He used to run, he retired from pro poker, then started a quantitative hedge fund that traded based on risk and volatility, and then was doing okay with that, but realized how profitable FBA was considering he was invested in it, and basically closed down the hedge fund to put everything into this. Then we've also brought on board Alexander Avanth. He is our investor relations and is also currently leading the photography studio.
And he was an early investor as well.
Yeah, he was an early investor. We brought him on a little over a year ago just as an investor. He was working a corporate job here in the Philippines. Was a pretty high-ranking executive there.
I had him on. His episode was out like 4 months ago. He was on that channel.
Yeah, so I guess you guys have met him, but Alex is amazing. really good interpersonal skills. Whenever it comes to investors and HR related stuff, he's the bomb. He's pretty great. We've also brought on Mike Michelini. I'm sure a lot of your viewers are familiar.
Yeah, definitely a lot of crossover with the audience.
Yeah, Mike's a great guy. I think we just had an article yesterday where he was quoted in the Wall Street Journal, and then 2 weeks ago maybe on BBC.
Yeah.
I think we have something else coming out maybe around 3 a.m. here tomorrow, our time.
Talking about how the coronavirus is affecting Amazon businesses, people running out of stock and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mike's great. He's our director of content. He drives a lot of traffic to us, and a lot of people find us through him. We also brought on Alexa Kalingo. We met her here. She has an MBA in the U.S. Went to med school for a little while. She's basically running the entire back end of the photography studio, managing 25 people more or less. So she's pretty great. And on the management team, we just flew in our newest member, David Abusiewiez. He runs our accounting, finance, and controls related to that. He's awesome. Having him on board is great. He's Portuguese, but also from Andorra. So yeah, we're starting to find talent. We have a talent discovery program more or less that has just started up. We just had our first guy come out 2 weeks ago from an MIT partnered school in Kuala Lumpur. So that could be interesting. And yeah, there's a lot of local talent that we're looking at poaching as well.
Nice. What were some of the difficulties that you faced in the last year?
Oh man, I think I was telling you one about earlier. So twice in the last year, TransferWise has closed all of our accounts. Last year it was a pretty big deal. So we were just up and running, had 2 or 3 businesses at the time. We were using TransferWise for a lot of banking and business stuff. Our legal structure was based in Singapore. And one day I think we were at a party at night, and it's like 10 p.m. and I walk in the party and Mark comes up, he's like, TransferWise just closed all our accounts. It's like, what? All the accounts, personal, business, everything. Basically, TransferWise didn't like that we weren't paying very much in fees, but we were sending a lot of money through, because that's kind of the nature of the e-commerce business.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically we didn't have another bank. Singaporean banking is not great. You kind of have to physically be there to open accounts, and when you're acquiring new businesses that need their own account all the time, it's not feasible.
It's like Hong Kong.
Yeah, so we figured out the US has the best financial structure you can possibly have, more or less. It's really easy to open bank accounts, especially for subsidiaries, which is how we structure it. So we flew there, opened the first account, and every other account since can be opened remotely, more or less, once you find a bank to partner with you. So that's all been well and good. We use TransferWise again for the US entity now for some international payments. Yesterday they closed all of our accounts without giving us a reason, so we will not be using TransferWise anymore, unfortunately. That was a big struggle last year. This year it doesn't affect us too much. We have some good partnerships with Payoneer here, and they treat us very well. So that was one of the biggest struggles of last year. On top of that, our management structure, Alex and I have worked corporate jobs before, but the other guys haven't. And so it's been a little tough getting them on the, okay, this is how having employees works. The employees like to be paid on time. We need to make sure that they're paid early, rather you can't do payroll that same day. It takes a day to process, right? So we need to pay them 2 or 3 days before to make sure they get it. Yeah. Just normal HR procedures and things like that. These guys aren't as familiar with. So it took a lot of us being fighting with them, kind of these are the HR procedures we need to have. We need to follow them to the T.
It's not pushback. It's just them not understanding the importance of it.
Yeah, combined with the fact that, especially in Andorra, which is a small country, Vedas, Mark, and David all lived there, and most of their lives. It's a very different environment, especially for business, being such a small country, than say the US is or the Philippines. So it was just a lot of adjustment. It wasn't so much, I say arguing, but really it was just okay guys, this is how it works in other countries when a lot of people are involved in businesses, so this is how we have to do it.
Yep.
And so just kind of pushing them along. We now have HR consulting along with our own HR department, and all of these things, setting up proper legal structures and all that, were completely foreign to them. So a lot of figuring all of that out, the best way to do it. And, so we restructured completely in the last year. I think that was the biggest headache. We completed that in early July of last year, and so now the last 6-7 months we've just been running, and pretty smoothly.
What other difficulties do you think somebody coming to the Philippines wanting to start a business would face?
The Philippines has very different HR laws than most other countries. The courts always side with the worker, more or less. Like, for example, we had some contractors that were contractors for a U.S. company. At the time, the U.S. company doesn't know what local tax laws are like, and in the U.S. it's perfectly fine to write employees are responsible for paying all applicable local, state, federal taxes in any country, whatever. That broad clause works in the U.S. Here it does not. If you don't specify exactly the taxes the employee needs to pay, the government says, oh, you didn't tell them which taxes they need to pay. They don't know, even though they live here.
Yeah.
So originally being a U.S. company, moving to a Philippine company where we have to pay the taxes and get that set up, payroll is still very manual here, and checking those calculations, we find errors once in a while. Thankfully, they have some automated systems we're getting set up with now that we have all the Philippine paperwork, set up. So dealing with the local government here is definitely a headache. So yeah, hiring freelancers, good. Moving onto a Filipino company, you need to have your HR procedures really in place.
What about managing the employees here? Obviously this is I always say it's probably the most most westernized Asian country. Everybody speaks English, it's highly educated, all that stuff. But there is differences, right?
Yeah, absolutely. People here are very procedure oriented.
Yeah.
They generally grew up in a culture where there's a lot of call centers and things like that. They have their procedures, they stick to them. They don't like breaking procedure. So we've had experiences where pulling some people like that into a startup, some of them rise to the occasion. They really think, how can I make all of this better? How can I work outside the box? Which is what you want in a startup, more or less. And others haven't, and they've been like, what's the procedure for this? I'm like, I've never come across this situation before in my life, so let's brainstorm.
Let's try something.
And it scares them.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, one of the biggest differences, but other than that, it's been pretty good. We have hired some pretty good people along the way, especially on my team. And yeah, they really love their jobs. They work very hard. I got my funniest story is one of them was at her friend's wedding. She was in the wedding, supposed to walk down the aisle as one of the bridesmaids.
Yeah.
And one of our Amazon listings went down. And she's like, guys, I just got the notification one of our Amazon listings went down. I'm about to be in a wedding, but if no one gets to this is on a Saturday at 2 p.m. If no one gets to this, I'll do it right after the wedding. Give me 15 minutes. And she's messaging us on Slack as she's about to walk down the aisle. I'm like, hey, I'm on my laptop. I had a movie going or something. I'm like, I'm on my laptop. Don't worry, I got this. Just be in your friend's wedding.
Nice.
But she used to work in a BPO, a business process outsourcing center, where they were confined to a box, not paid very well, and were basically just told to follow the rules and not make a fuss. Mm-hmm. And now she's in a company where she feels she can make an actual difference, and messages me at all times of the day, just loves her job. So it's really nice to see that. Those are the huge positive things that a lot of people don't talk about.
Okay, that's interesting. It's quite similar to China in that sense, process oriented. So if you're not a micromanager, you're going to struggle a lot in that kind of environment. But we've definitely had employees that stepped up and enjoyed the fact that they had freedom to make decisions.
Yeah.
And it's just the difficulties finding those people.
And that's the thing is, maybe you hire 5 and 2 work out. One here, they have a very interesting phenomenon. I think this is on the negative side, but they really will go through a process where they hire 5 people and 1 actually shows up to work the day that they're supposed to. I don't know why that's the case, why even apply for the job at all, but it's even happened to us. We schedule interviews with people who seem super excited for the job, and then they don't show up, and they message you at the time the interview is starting, hey, I can't make it, can we reschedule? And those aren't the people you want to hire.
I recently had a situation. I'm trying to hire a marketing manager, and we had multiple rounds of interviews, and she seemed like the best, and she similar thing, super excited, everything. We scheduled a meeting to meet in Manila, and the day that I arrived, radio silence. 2 days later, she messaged me saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I had this family thing, and I don't know if I can take this job anymore." And I was like, okay, it's par for the course, I guess.
Yeah, That's definitely difficult for me.
Yeah.
Like, if they tell you any time in advance, like, hey, I have this family thing, okay, yeah, no problem, let's reschedule. But like, if they're telling you after you're supposed to meet,
yeah, and the
better to just move
difficult, the more frustrating thing is just the fact that you invest that time into that person, and then they kind of just don't respect it. I guess like, I don't know what that is, but yeah. But I think actually that goes to another point though. I think because it's a very non-confrontational society. I think a lot of times they don't, even if they have those kind of issues early, they don't want to say anything.
Yeah.
And then it becomes too much.
Yeah.
And then they kind of just have to be like, I'm not showing up, or.
That's something that took adjusting to, like asking, like, hey, is everything okay? I had a situation where something went wrong, and the employee kind of like buried it in their weekly report somewhere where I wasn't likely to see it that well, instead of just coming and telling me like, hey, we had an issue with this that we could have fixed more or less immediately.
Yeah.
But they're very non-confrontational. I think that's one of the hardest things to overcome. But I have noticed that even with those employees, the more you sit down and talk to them, like I try to sit down with them more or less once a week, say, okay, how was last week? What are we planning to do this week? This is what I want from you. You tell me about how your personal life's going. I'll assign you readings and educational things so that you can become better at your job or any other skill you want. And so like the more you get to know that employee one-on-one, the more likely they are to be straight up with you. But yeah, they're very shy at first and they don't want to tell you when something's wrong.
All right, so moving into the closing questions. Two parts. What's been one of your best moments living here, and then one of your best moments running Alpha Rock?
Wow. Best moments living here?
Like, what's a memory that sticks out, whether it's the first time you went out or
I mean, there's definitely not just one. Like, there's so many memorable nights. We've definitely had a few. The late nights out partying are always fun. But the most memorable is just it's the life that I live here. I think about it every day. Like, I feel incredibly lucky to live here. I have people that take care of my home for me. I have my dog. I have a girlfriend here. I have basically everything here. A great network of friends. Everything that I could ask for, and I've never had that anywhere else really. So really, it's a conglomeration of everything that makes living here so awesome. We've done some cool day trips, like places around, beaches, whatever it is. It's always a new experience in some way, shape, or form. So I can't say one thing that stands out above everything else.
And then from the business side of things?
From the business side of things, I mean, it's more or less the point that we're at now, right? Like every new day that we move in the positive direction, like is just awesome. We have our bad days. Yesterday we had a bunch of shit won't go wrong, different things, nothing specifically related to the business, but like one of my employees got denied a visa and was very sad about it, transfer-wise closing our bank accounts, whatever it is, nothing affected the core business. And I mean, that was a fun thing to feel like we're in a position where even if things go wrong, it's managed and we can handle it.
Yeah.
So like that was a good feeling yesterday. But yeah, I mean, just being where we're at, if you asked me a year and a half ago, I couldn't have told you that I'd be here. So I can't pick out specific points, no matter how much you wanted me to, Rico. Sorry, but just every day here is an adventure.
All right. Actually, one thing we didn't talk about was the acquisition of that company.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to talk about that, or?
Yeah, that one's an interesting one. So yeah, I guess I'll keep it kind of brief, but. Yeah. I used to work there, didn't really get along with one of the owners. The other minority owner was my best friend, is still.
It was after?
Yeah, getting to that part. So yeah, we took over the company. The owner that I didn't agree with, we bought him out. He left, nothing from him. The other one stayed on. we definitely ran into a problem there where he was no longer an owner. We bought the company out 100%, and I think that kind of was not the position he wanted to be in. He's not a person that operates well being an employee and just taking orders. That's just not his style. Yeah, that's most entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
Just like in any breakup, even if it's somewhat on good terms, there may be some emotions there, like
some tension.
Yeah, so definitely little tensions, but things are getting back to normal between him and I. We're doing pretty well.
Really does sound like a divorce or like
yeah, it is. Listen,
things are getting back to
business
normal.
is a relationship. It's just like any marriage.
Yeah.
You're married to the people you're doing business with, and
Yeah.
if that relationship's not right for you, it's better to just call it at one point than to keep fighting forever.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
As I said, I couldn't even imagine 2 years ago that I'd be here. 5 years, I don't know. Probably still with Alpha Rock. Our timeline for FBA consolidation, we assume to be around 5 years. So hopefully with a much bigger company, more people, more businesses, more containers at sea every month.
You see it being a billion-dollar company by that stage?
Yeah, that's our goal. Of course we talk about what our goals are, and the first goal is like $100 million company and then $1 billion. If we can get there, I don't want to sound too lofty or whatever it is, but looking at the scenario that we're in, there's like 400 million roughly of FBA businesses available for sale at the present moment.
Yeah.
That number has continued to go up as more people build their businesses and sell them. So we don't foresee a shortage of businesses to buy. And at one point, we're assuming around 6 months from now, we'll be at what we call our critical mass, which is basically the profit per month from the businesses is enough to buy a new business every month or maybe every 2 months at first.
Okay.
And so once we hit that point, it's really just self-generating capital, self-fulfilling, more or less. So.
Nice. What is the smallest thing you've done that's brought you the best results in your business?
I mean, smallest thing, who knows, even before coming here to do this with you, I was a few minutes late because one of my employees found that Amazon had been charging us an extra 38 cents on fulfillment fee than we should have been charged, which would save us like $1,500 per month from that one SKU, more or less. So small things happen every day that save thousands of dollars. I would say one of the biggest ones is we switch freight forwarders. We find a new business, we switch the freight forwarder, and we did this mix where the freight forwarder does not clear their own goods at customs because they weren't getting good rates. So we found a customs broker. We save about $800 or $900 every time we have a container clear customs, and the shipper charges us like $2,000 or $3,000 less than the company was originally being charged.
Nice.
Once we ship at least one container a month for that business, and that's $5,000 more or less saved.
Well, would you say, I guess, attention to detail? Is that maybe that?
Yeah, it's all about finding the small stuff,
small
right?
details, yeah.
I check everything every day. I will see exactly how many units of everything we sold, which way the ranking is going on a daily, or it updates by the minute, but I check at least once a day where everything's headed, looking for those small things. The other day, Amazon changed categories for thousands and thousands of items without telling anyone the new category structure. And we were all confused until we were I think Mark and I remembered one post that we saw in some random Facebook group someone complained about a category change. Did everyone's category get changed? Yes, they did. Okay. Here's how we function in the new category, things of that nature. So attention to detail with these FBA businesses is critical. Resizing your package by fractions of an inch can save you thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So we're always looking for ways to optimize.
What are 3 books, blogs, or podcasts that you'd recommend somebody check out if they wanted to understand you better?
So I really love The One Thing as far as a book. Really good book, really simple concept is you need to set goals, and the goal should drive you towards your one thing, right? In a sense, I choose one for personal and one for work. So whatever I'm doing is driving towards that goal. So my someday goal is to walk on as many planetary bodies as I possibly can. So that basically means accumulating enough money for a ride to the moon and maybe to Mars, based on Elon Musk's plans that should cost around $500,000 more or less, return tickets from Mars.
Yeah.
So, everything I do in business drives me towards just generating capital to reinvest capital. That's the goal, right? That's the method to the goal. On a personal level, right now, my one thing is training my dog. I got a dog, love him to death, but spent a little too much time away from him. He developed some bad behaviors. I'm working on correcting them now, and so that's been pretty fulfilling for me. Getting him, walking exactly the way I want him to walk, and behaving as I would want him to behave. The one thing, great book, love it. It's for me all about focus, and I believe that you can't do too many things at once, or you'll lose track of all of them. They'll fall through your fingers. Website or blog that I really like, that I mostly agree with almost every point that they make, is Wait But Why.
I haven't heard of it.
Oh man, I think it's Tim Urban.
Okay.
Phenomenal. Has all sorts of things. He did a 3-part series on Elon Musk that included SpaceX, The Boring Company, Tesla. Really liked all of those things about how the brain works, why we procrastinate. He's done a TED Talk about how procrastinators can learn to procrastinate less, essentially by thinking of things in different ways.
Yeah.
And that whole website just is amazing. The articles maybe somewhere 20,000 words, 30,000 words, and so they take half an hour to read, but I really like the way he presents things. Really complicated things too, human behavior, all sorts of things.
Nice.
Highly recommend checking that out. Podcasts, I enjoy listening to Empire Flippers podcast, so I'm just going to give them a quick shout out because it tells us a lot about our business and the state of the industry, as well as learning from CEOs of other businesses.
I didn't know that they had a podcast.
Oh yeah, it's.
I definitely have to check that out.
They have different business owners on there all the time. One that was really cool was the CEO of Mercury Bank and all sorts of things. But I listen to a lot of business podcasts, so that one's pretty great, as well as on a more personal level for productivity. I'm hugely into productivity. I really like Cortex. It's by CGP Grey. I'm not familiar. He's a YouTuber. Not sure if you're familiar. Have you ever seen Humans Need Not Apply, that video about how automation's going to take over the world and all that? Yeah. So he made that. He has a YouTube channel with a ton of random videos about cool things. Really, really like his podcast Cortex. It's all about productivity, how to most efficiently organize your email inbox, calendars to use, productivity tools like checklists, Asana,
Nice.
All sorts of things for managing your businesses. And related to CGP Grey, also YouTube, Kurt's Gazette. If you haven't checked them out, they're really awesome. They explain some of the most complicated things you could imagine, like string theory, in really simple ways with amazing visuals, and they're just nice to listen to. The narrator has a great voice, so
Nice.
check it out.
Some people say I have a nice voice as well, but
You got the late night DJ voice.
Yeah, exactly. I have the radio, smooth jazz hour, All right, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to talk about?
When are you going back to China or full time in Philippines? What's the deal?
I'm full time here, man. I'm here. I think I told you the other day. It was I was in the gym and I just had a realization. I was I'm here. I'm not I'm about to sign a 1-year contract on an apartment and pay a deposit tomorrow. So yeah.
Glad to have you here.
Shit is real, man. Shit is real. All right, man. So if people want to reach out to you or Alpha Rock team, where can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, David at alpharockcapital.com, email. I'm pretty active. I'm not super active on social media in terms of posting, but someone shoots me a message, I'll do my best to check it within 24 hours. So
Nice.
Yeah, shoot me a message.
Thanks for being on, and this is a dope interview. We should have set this up earlier, but
I enjoyed.
All right, thanks, man.